or what happens to the credibility that I'm carrying on my shoulders since last 2 decades or so within the organization. So number one, fear of unknown. Number two, fear of failing. And to me, honestly speaking, that is what is killing us, right? Fear of unknown is easily overcomable, not an issue. Fear of failure is something that in the West, especially what I've seen is that they believe that let's fail, but fail fast. So they want to do initiatives like 3 weeks, 4 weeks, new ideas, they want to implement those, and they're very open if they fail fast. They don't want to, on the other side, they don't want to waste 2 years to try and implement something and then not achieve value out of it. So my 2 thoughts on that.
Right, thank you. My next question is for Madam Aliya Zafar. Ma'am, Mr. Adnan touched upon innovation. So how can digital transformation be used to drive innovation and improve the overall organizational performance?
Thank you very much. I think one of the key elements that we need to always look at in terms of digital transformation is the why of it. Mostly when we talk about any kind of transformation or change, linking to what we were talking about earlier, essentially the why of it is not really understood, and if the why of it is not understood by the whole organization, you would have a lot of challenges coming in terms of non-acceptability of whatever change that may be. So the first step, I think, in terms of how you approach it needs to be to understand, first of all, at the management level, the why of it, and then to cascade it down at all levels. Once you do that, the very essence of any technology upgrades or digitalization, as we look at it, is really looking at all aspects of work which we were doing in a particular way for a long time and doing it in a new way. Just that basic understanding, once we have it, does create its own innovation. Because digitalization essentially requires that we look at all the processes, all the policies, all the ways of work, and see how we can sort of transfer them onto a digital area. So that's how innovation works, and that's how essentially we need to connect both. It's the basis of digitalization innovation, so you can't really sort of segregate both.
Right. Ma'am, that's a very valid point, but speaking from your years of experience, what are some of the common pitfalls that organizations face when managing change during digital transformation, and how can they be avoided? Because obviously change management in itself is quite a big challenge here in Pakistan in particular.
So I think the first thing I was talking about, communication. The greatest pitfall of any transformation essentially lies in lack of communication, lack of transparency. What we normally do is that, organizations would create a strategy, but the strategy would also be sort of locked down, into a few areas only, or with a few people only. The organization, all of it, from bottom to top, needs to be engaged. And for that kind of engagement, you really need to focus on all your internal employees. How do you focus on them in terms of change management? Requires complete transparency and communication of why we are doing all these things. How it will impact them and their jobs. A lot of the fears that you talked about earlier are really coming out from, okay, maybe my job is at risk. And they don't understand that digitalization actually helps them in 2 ways. One thing, it takes out all the riffraff from your job, all the routine out of your job, and really it puts it all into a technology platform. So you have more time for value addition. You have more time to give to the core of the position that you hold. And once that is understood by all employees, I think that really works very well. So 2 aspects of it. Their understanding of their own positions and jobs and how it's transforming, and how digitalization or technology transfers are helping them do their job in a better way. So I think these things need to be sort of talked about.
Mr. Imran, Lakhwera, this is coming to you.
Aliya made a few very good points. I think talking about the pitfalls, and the roadblocks, the leadership has to be on board. That's, at least from my perspective, from digital transformation. If the leadership is not on board, any transformation is going to go haywire. So it's a top-down approach, not a bottom-up approach. The leaders have to be involved. They have to be motivated. They are the first advocates, and then downstream the information cascades. And they are the ones who are supposed to advocate it, cascade it, promote it, measure it, and then propagate that.
Right. So just to add to it, maybe you can, elaborate on this as well. It's interesting that you mentioned measuring the impact as well, because one of the biggest takeaways that we have with digital transformation is the ability for the leadership to make data-driven decisions. The challenge, however, sometimes lies in how do you align that with your overall business strategy and your goals, especially for the leadership?
That's a very good question, and I'll talk about my organization from Engro Fertilizer. So first, even in EFERT, we call it EFERT, I always distinguish and call it out that digital transformation division is not IT. We are innovation. We have to go in the people, in the stakeholder, and in employees or external stakeholders or customers. IT, not underlying IT, but IT usually works in silo. They get a project, they get it done, they test it out, they roll it out, they move on to the next one. Any transformation organization has to mingle and associate themselves with all the stakeholders. So the leadership has to be involved, the digital transformation team has to work with the internal stakeholders from the CEO or CTO all the way down to the very end user. And if the product is going outward toward the customer, you have to go and talk to the customer. So in fertilizer, you'll see digital transformation team working, sitting, having sessions with farmers, dealers. You'll see us at the port, talking to the cargo people. You'll see us in the corporate headquarters, talking to the different teams, supply chain, commercial. What approach we take is we have workshops and sessions which are extremely useful. So we'll call the commercial business and say, give us your 10, 15, 20 SMEs, GMs, managers. We'll sit down with them and ask them open-ended questions. Give us your business problems, and we are here to translate them into technology solutions. We take that and then we align it with the business strategy that the commercial or the Engro Fertilizer has, and then we converge them together to a common goal, which is now digitized. Working in silos is a big pitfall. If you work in silos and the stakeholders are not aware, like Aliya said, the transparency is not there. They are not aware what's going on. They just get the finished product. The adoption rate is going to be very low because they don't see any stake in it. They don't see any involvement in it.
Right, absolutely. Mr. Tahir Nawaz, so what I've understood so far is that all these efforts need to be inclusive, meaning that all the employees of the company should have the opportunity to participate and benefit from the changes that occur. How can we ensure this within organizations, and especially within SMEs and startups? We're not talking about the Engro Corps here.
For startups and for the small organization, definitely it's no matter whatever the size of the organization is, involvement of the employees is equally important. And how you can do it, the leadership you have for the change transformation, that is very important. First of all, you need to have digitally intelligent people in your top team. And by digital intelligent people, I does not mean the guy with the IT degree. It could be your operational manager, or those could be HR leader, but those who are tech savvy. And then you need to define a clear strategy, which should show like what's your transformation strategy is, and then there should be a clear change strategy available. And then those leaders at the top should be able to communicate those strategies and the vision to your employees at large. And then what leader can do differently is in your routine meetings, in your town halls, whenever you are meeting, you need to make this topic a special agenda, and then ask your people a data-driven based question. And when they will understand, like Simply, if I'm going to have a meeting with my team, I should ask them, I should first upgrade myself and then ask them data-driven question, which should be thought-provoking. And then they will see if our leaders are moving towards a digital transformation, it will push them move in the same direction for future.
Right. But, you know, sir, with all due respect, mind me for being the devil's advocate, do you think that the rate at which newer technology is coming forward, we've got a newer version of, let's say, Salesforce and Slack and all the operational softwares, do you think that the senior leadership of companies at this point can adapt as quickly to the changes that are coming? Because see, you have to realize that they're not digital natives.
Yeah, that doesn't matter like anyway, because if you see, I think the people are more tech savvy and digitally literate than we think, because especially when it's outside the office, like people are learning how to handle TikTok, people are learning how to have YouTube videos, blogs, and it's all matter of time. But we underestimate, and the reason is because we are unable to show them the real value in those transformation within those sophisticated system available to us. And the important part is like if we can tell them how these new softwares or systems are going to solve their problem or how they are going to improve the life of those customers, then definitely there will be a buy-in and people will start to follow.
Right. Mr. Adnan Kazi.
Sorry, can I just build on it, because I have some important thought I just want to share with everyone. Anza, we have a customer and the managing director of that company, it's an insurance company, I won't name it, but the managing director one day said to the company, to the all enterprise, कि on a particular date onward, अगर 15 दिसंबर के बाद अगर कोई मेरे पास एक्सेल शीट के ऊपर रिपोर्टिंग लेके आया या कन्वेंशनल सॉफ्टवेयर्स के ऊपर कुछ लेके आया और इस न्यू प्रोजेक्ट जो कि BI का AI का किया है इसके ऊपर नहीं लेके आता, I will not accept, and that is the last deadline that I am extending. And honestly speaking, that point onward, when senior management came to the managing director and presented the old school of thought, old way of reporting, he sent them back. And within few weeks, everybody started learning the new tools. And today that organization is exceptionally tech savvy, I must say, and you know, very, very tech savvy and really forward looking organization. So the point I'm trying to make here is, just to summarize, it's not a question of improvement. Digital transformation is not a question of improvement. Digital transformation is rather a question of survival. Unless and until you get this thought process instilled across your employee base, right from the CEO, right, I reiterate, not the COO, not the CFO, not the CCO, right from the CEO, you will not be able to succeed in your digital transformation. So to me, it's a question of survival. Everybody who's not able to do that will be lagging behind for sure.
So I think we also need to change the narrative from from making it sound like a cost to the business to an investment into the business. Mr. Adnan Kazi, just a follow-up question. What do you think should be some of the policy recommendations put forward to the government? What role can the public sector play here in ensuring organizational change in the digital transformation era?
I think, Anza, your question relates to, I mean, your question could be answered in different ways for different sectors, right? If you talk about, so I'll just try to split it across two entities. One is regulated entities and the other one is non-regulated entities. For the regulated entities like banking or insurance companies or other companies who are really being, and credit bureaus for that matter, for instance, where State Bank is keeping a very sharp eye on it, I think they need to get a bit lenient on the conditions they're putting on the cloud strategies, digitization strategies, and allow the banks and allow the other entities to really take a step forward and try to serve their customers better digitally, put their data on the cloud. I'm not talking about the personally identifiable information, I'm talking about the other lot of data sets that are directly related to the customer experience improvement of the customers. So that is so they need to get a bit lenient. Secondly, I think they need to hire people who have implemented or who have seen the best forward-looking policies being implemented in the West. Because hiring someone who has not implemented something in the West They will not be able to come up with a policy framework which is more meaningful and more practical for that matter, to be honest. That will be all something on the books and very bookish knowledge, I must say. If you talk about the non-regulated entities, I think private sector, all of us, I mean mostly the people sitting in this room and who have been invited today, I think in this case, the policy framework is not coming from the regulator or any third party. The policy is coming from the CEO office or the leadership team, executive leadership team of the company. I would seriously insist all the CEOs and all the executive leadership team members across their organizations to please give a very crisp and clear message, very loud and clear to the employees, that all error-prone, human-intensive, repetitive processes will be eliminated and human beings will not be working on those. Human beings will be used on value-added services, on things which can really bring value to the companies. Unless and until you give that messaging, you will not be able to achieve anything. One last thing, Anza, on this. You were talking to, you asked one of the panelists about how you can align your digital transformation goals with the organizational goals.
Yes.
That was a very pertinent question. The way we used to do is that, first of all, you know that at the board level, there are some organizational goals that are set, right? For the next 3 years, these are the key goals and key KPIs, right? What we need to ensure as leaders of the organizations is that we need to ensure that whatever digital goals are we defining for the organization for the next 3 years, they are 100% aligned with the organizational goals set at the board level, and not only aligned, they are monitored, they are converted into an action plan, and that action plan is then trackable, traceable, and is monitored. And I would also go to that extent that people who are part of those digital change and transformation, their annual appraisal process should be directly linked to their performance on the adoption of digital transformation. If you don't do it, it will always be treated as an option and you will never be able to achieve the limits that you want to really touch upon.
Thank you so much, Mr. Adnan, Kazi. Those were some fabulous recommendations. So my last question is going to be for you, Madam Aliya. We did speak about a lot of the future readiness that we need to have in terms of the organization at large. What about the skills that the overall employee set, or let's say the mid-career professionals of today, need to have or need to acquire, or perhaps companies need to invest into their human capital to make them more future ready?
Thank you, and that's such a broad area because skills are not something that are static. As you earlier mentioned, that we are all going through a huge transformation phase, and that's global. The pace of transformation is such that it's very difficult for anyone working anywhere to really sit with whatever skills they may have and not really think about the future. So a lot of the industries which were here 10 years back are no longer here. There are new things coming up at all times, which essentially means that we need to look at what's out there. The pace of transformation is such that upgrading our skills, upskilling ourselves becomes really something which has to be continuous. You cannot really sit back and think that, you know, I've done this, so I should be able to go ahead and, you know, stay in a particular job for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, as it used to be. So I think the whole sort of ecosystem of learning has transformed. Now, which direction or what skills are required? I think one of the most important things for everyone turns out to be that you need to really be able to analyze yourself and where you stand and understand where the industries around you are going to go forward and go ahead. And then you need to make your decisions in terms of self-investment, not really bank only upon the organizations where you're working, because they would definitely be looking at skills that they require in terms of their strategy in the next few years, definitely. So you will be getting some support from there. But if you want to really take a leap forward, you really need to look around and see how much of that investment per year you can do on yourself as well. So I think that has to become something that we invest in. We normally don't do that at all. We tend to delegate the responsibility of our development to an organization where the organization may or may not do it to the satisfaction or to the requirement that you may have. So it's important to take it in our hands first, and then obviously you need to look around and see what really works for you within your work stream, where you want to go, where you want to switch, because it's not necessarily important to stay with one type of work stream all your life. You can always move, and for that you need new skills. So upskilling remains something that you need to do persistently nowadays, especially. Thank you.
So, ma'am, just building up on that, one of the biggest challenges to, organizational change is that a lot of the mid-career professionals or even senior leadership feel that because of the advancements in AI, their jobs are going to be obsolete, that they will be replaced by machines. We've seen it happen with fintech. We've seen it happen with a lot of the different sectors. So what can we do to sort of counter this narrative?
So it's a very interesting narrative, actually. And when you look at the West, and you were talking about how we need to take quite a few things from the West. Well, the West, the population age, they're all aging. You look at America, you look at Japan, you look at Europe, average age is like 46, 47 plus. Pakistan is 23, 26, India. We are a young population, and we have a population explosion. So we have a lot of people. So our greatest asset happens to be people. Now, how do you bring both these things together? So you look at digitalization, and AI is just one part of it. It's become a buzzword. For everywhere you go, you're talking about AI. Yes, AI can help, certainly. Any kind of technology which actually provides you space to make decisions faster, which is able to give you analytics and analysis which you may take maybe 500 hours, and the machine learning would do it probably in seconds. Yes, it's all there, and yet it's there to help people who are going to utilize those and make decisions, ask the pertinent questions and take the right decisions. And that remains in the hands of people. So I don't think that anyone at any level needs to be scared of any kind of technology incorporation within their organizations. What they need to look at is how their job is evolving and what kind of skills they require to be able to keep up with their job and to ace it. And that's essentially how they need to look at it. Not be really insecure about it, because a lot of us do get insecure because it's different, it's not something we are comfortable with, we don't know what it is about. But at the end of the day, again, it comes back to communication within the organizations. Also, how we talk to each other, how we actually make each other understand that this is really going to help you, support you, and make you do your job better.
Right. Thank you so much, ma'am.